What's up, guys? Welcome to G Whiskey. My name is Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and if you stick around to the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below. And with that out of the way, why don't we jump into our review? Today we're looking at a classic. We've got the Lagavulin 16. Stick around. I don't know why it took me so long to get around to a review of this one. This one is like, this should be in your first 5 videos if you're trying to break into the whiskey YouTuber scene. It's a legend, it's a classic, all of you know it, most of you probably love it. Lagavulin 16. This bad boy's been around since 1988, it's part of Diageo's classic malts range, and this bottle is probably one of the most famous ambassadors for Islay whiskey that we have out there, which is kind of interesting because it's different. This is very different from a lot of the other Islay big boys, stuff like your Ardbegs or your Laphroaigs. And that's because this stuff is softer, it's gentler, it's calmer. We do get peat and smoke in here, but it's more rounded, it's more refined than what we'll get with most of the other Islay offerings, for better or for worse. And you know, of course, a lot of people do turn to Islay whiskeys because they want that more rugged, punchier character. But this one is definitely one of your more pretty Islay offerings. And it's worth noting that that applies to our 16 specifically. The 8-year-old, the 12-year-old cast strength, those are about as rough and tumble as any other Islay out there. But our 16 here has built its reputation on being very accessible. It's great for people who are maybe beginners or just getting started with the Islay flavor profiles. It's a great stepping stone into that world. But it's also like layered and complex enough that a lot of seasoned whiskey drinkers can get behind it too. And you know, I've always liked it precisely because it is a more refined and calmer option from Islay. Traditionally, there haven't been too many of those. There's definitely like a gentlemanly appeal to this. It's not as loud or as intense or as rugged or as scrappy as Ardbegs or Laphroaigs. Part of that is due to the lower ABV, which it does get criticized for, I mean, rightly so. And it also gets criticized for being not quite as good as it used to be back in the day. But to be fair, I mean, that's the kind of thing that people say about pretty much every whiskey out there. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it isn't. Us whiskey drinkers can be a nostalgic bunch for sure. So let's see if this is as good as the Laga from the good old days. Let's see if this dinosaur is still competitive in today's market. Let's jump into our review, see what our whiskey is all about. And in the meantime, if you could kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. Well, we do have a Diageo product here, so we can expect to be underwhelmed. Our ABV comes in at 43%. It is going to be chill filtered. It is a colored whiskey. You know, disappointing, yes, absolutely. Surprising? Nah. Tinted bottle here, so we can't make out the color of our whiskey. I love Lagavulin bottles. I think they look fantastic. I like that they haven't really updated or changed the look in a really long time. I do feel like the look of the bottle kind of suits the whiskey that we've got inside. It's got a restrained, old school, kind of gentlemanly elegance to it. Wonderful bottle, so I'm going to give this maybe 4.5 out of 5. Obviously, they're not going to brag about being colored or chill filtered. Why would they? Diageo in general, though, is pretty famous for sharing next to nothing when it comes to stuff like production information or just useful information in general. It's annoying. I suppose we should expect it at this point. Yeah, it's still a great bottle, though. I did not add water. Let's try our nose. Sweet, soft, refined. We have peat and sherry in equal measure here. Both very gentle, seamlessly integrated. We have some minerals, some rooibos tea, some oysters, a little bit of grenadine. We have sea air, we have Himalayan rock salt. We have like ribs slathered in like a sweet barbecue sauce. Maybe some sliced oranges in there. Classic Laga nose. Let's try the palate. Very easy arrival. Peat comes on first. Bonfire logs, bonfire smoke, embers, black pepper, grilled meat, definitely some leather in here. There's also some candied fruit like candied apple, candied strawberries, some maraschino cherries. And now our finish. All right, gets fruitier and drier here. More maraschino cherries. I'm picturing one of those fancy dark chocolate bars with like bits of chili in it. Also have bits of fruit, bits of almonds too. There's also smoke, earth, leather, and autumn leaves. Our finish is medium in length. Well, this one is still a classic. There's not a lot about this whiskey that I don't like. It's got all the elements that made it a classic. It's got that grown-up, gentlemanly character. I've previously referred to this whiskey as the ultimate fireside whiskey. I still think that's true. I imagine myself sitting on an antique leather armchair in my study next to the fireplace. I don't have a study or a fireplace. And anyway, I'm sipping on this, I'm reading a good book, and I'm listening to the fire crackle in the background. And I have a mustache. Now, this is not a whiskey that you're going to feed to someone if you want to like blow them away with intensity. I mean, you know, I guess for the uninitiated who are just getting into peat, this one is going to have like big peat and it's going to feel punchy and very smoky. But I think if you've had enough peat, this one will be relatively tame. There's definitely a lot of much more aggressively peated whiskeys out there. And I like it for that. I like the vibe that this whiskey gives me. It's got that special quality. It takes me somewhere. That being said, it's not perfect. There are some areas that we can definitely improve upon here. And that's not really Lagavulin's fault. That's more Diageo's fault. I think the intrinsic quality of our whiskey here is fantastic. It's absolutely brimming with flavor. Honestly, more flavor than it has any right having at just 43%. That being said, at 43%, it is a little light in the body. It definitely should be 46. Also, I think the mutterings from like the whiskey curmudgeons out there might actually be right on this one. I also kind of think, yeah, this one was better back in the day. You know, memory can be a little bit dicey at times, so I'm not totally convinced this used to be a lot better than it is now. The flavors, the profile, it's all pretty much the same, but I do seem to remember a little bit more maybe depth or nuance to the older versions. So yeah, I think the Lagavulin 16s of yesteryear had a little bit more complexity. And I would need a side-by-side to confirm that, but yeah, I do feel like this one is a little bit simpler. That being said, it's still a damn fine pour. It's still a whiskey I'm always happy to come back to. So I'm going to give this one a score of 86. Older ones probably would have been 88. So we've got a charming, approachable, unique, fruity profile here. We have stuff like bonfire notes, embers, cherries, oranges. I don't think I've ever not enjoyed drinking Lagavulin 16. Nostalgia might be a factor there, but no, I mean, it's good. It's a good whiskey. Also, what other peated Islay distillery is giving us affordable, age-stated whiskeys these days? I guess there's Lefroy with their 16. Definitely some Bowmores. Fine, there's a few, but there should be more. Regardless, this is an excellent whiskey. Again, it's got very broad appeal. It's one that beginners can get behind, as well as seasoned old-timers like myself. So it's definitely one to try if you haven't. I think most experienced single malt whiskey drinkers will have tried this one before. But if you're new, if you're just getting into whiskey, if you want to dip your toe into those temperamental Islay waters, definitely check this one out. It's a classic. It's a rite of passage. Our value here is okay. I'm not going to say it's great. It has climbed in price quite a bit over the last few years in my market. It's not super expensive for a 16-year-old, but it's not particularly cheap either. There was a time that this was among the cheaper 16-year-olds you could buy, and that's definitely no longer the case. Still, this is a bottle I'm going to suggest you pick up, maybe split one. Listen, our specs are weak here. The prices have been climbing over the last few years. This is not a bottle that's going to be worth it forever. For the time being, while the price is still somewhat reasonable, it's worth trying. You have to experience this one at least once. Alright, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, please consider becoming a patron. Otherwise, like, comment, and subscribe. Always appreciated. I do want to hear from you. Have you tried our Lagavulin 16 here? What were your thoughts? Finally, down below in the comments, let me know what you want to see me review next. I'll keep it in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye, guys.